Hello, and welcome back to the podcast where you are invited for lighthearted conversations about things that matter as you seek to live your most meaningful, beautiful, and joyful life. I'm your host, Dr. Edie Wadsworth, and I hope you enjoy your stay here at the House of Joy. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You are in for a treat today because I have one of my dear friends and actually an amazing part of the Edie Wadsworth coaching team, Angela Jowers, here for an interview. And I am so proud to know her and so excited for this interview. Angela has an incredible story, you guys. And if you've never heard parts of her story, you are going to love this. So tune in. When I met Angela, which was in 2019, I think. So gosh, almost 6 years ago. Angela, it's been almost 6 years. Welcome to the podcast, by the way.
I'm so glad to be here. So glad you asked. So fun.
I know. And when I met you way back when, you were, I would say you were a little bit where I was maybe 8 or 9 years ago, but really struggling with some heavy things. And we actually met because you were attending one of my workshops. And we can talk about your experience there, and I want to because we're right in the middle of another one of our workshops called the Confidence Code, and we do these workshops upright. I mean, we tell people, look, you'll get so much transformation from this 2 or 3 days together that you won't believe it, and you did back then, and ended up becoming part of our team, which meant that you got to know our material really better than anybody. At this point, I think you know the stuff that I've written better than I know it.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I would love to hear your story, especially about what you were struggling with at the time, what was going on in your life before you became a part of Life Mentoring School. What were really struggling with the most?
Well, I would say that, when I think about like what was kind of what were my overarching thoughts around that time? My main thought that I probably thought every day was my whole life is have to, and there is no get to. That was probably the theme,
Of your life. If you had to give it the title of your story.
Yeah, if we had to give that season of my life a title, that would be the title of my story. And I could, I really felt that way. I have a special needs adult son, and he
Yeah.
was really struggling, and I was his 24/7 caregiver. And, he was kind of grieving his sister going off to school, so he was acting out a lot. He had aged out of the school system, and so he didn't have anything to do all day. And then I couldn't find work because I have to take care of him 24 hours a day. He's not going to school anymore. Like, how am I supposed to make a living? And so,
Yep.
mentally, emotionally, financially, we were really, really struggling. And I was really feeling like hopeless, helpless. Like, why is my life
Yeah.
like this?
Like this.
Yeah. And in the middle of all of that, I was also having my health had kind of crashed, like probably from all the stress.
Yep.
So in almost every way, I just felt like my whole life was just this, obligation. And everything felt hard. And I felt, we hear this so much, and I can so relate. Like, I felt really stuck in a hopeless situation, and I really didn't feel like I had any choices.
Yep.
That I was wrong about that, but that is how it felt. And
Yep.
yeah, I could give you tons of evidence of how that was true. And
Was
so,
true.
yeah. And so, but it didn't even matter that it was true. It was so refreshing when I showed up at that workshop and I learned that there were some choices I had. So,
So
um,
powerful. And when it's interesting because you were kind of quiet. Like I didn't know really all that was going on for a while. And you got we actually hired you, and you came into the program and did a lot of like you were on all the calls. So you were hearing all of the teachings, all of the coaching calls, and it's like the person who is accidentally getting like all of these tools, that's, it's supposed to be your job, but it turns out the tools are really powerful and they work on you whether you work for the company or not.
Yeah, it turns out they work. Like it actually works. And I was just desperate enough to try anything. Like,
Yes.
I was just desperate enough to humble myself and say, okay, like maybe this,
Maybe I can change my thoughts about this terrible situation.
yeah, maybe my whole experience of this can change. Like maybe there are some choices here. Maybe I don't have a choice right now about, how Evan acts or whether or not he can go to school or I can find a program for him. But I do have a choice about how I experience this and how I think about it and how I show up to it. I mean, at least there's
Yes.
choice, right?
Yes.
And so just believing that there was some choice and then choosing and see
Yes.
what happened. It was just it made me have hope. Like I was so hopeful, when I
Mm,
started to experience, nothing in my life changed immediately. Now, a lot has changed since then, but
yeah.
immediately nothing in my life changed, but my experience of my
You
life
changed. Yeah.
changed. And
Yeah.
it was like such a relief. Such a
That's so comforting to people because I think a lot of times when I'm teaching, even today, you know, when I was teaching earlier, sometimes when I'm teaching, I think to myself, there's somebody out there going, yeah, but you don't understand my situation. Was there a little bit of that for you where you were like, yeah, I mean, what you're saying sounds good. Okay, I get to create the experience of my life that I want to create given the circumstances I'm given. Was there any part of you that kind of a little bit rebelled against that or went, well, you don't know?
Oh, 100%, because I really did feel like that nobody really understood.
Yeah.
Nobody understood. Like, what do you mean you're not working? Like, you know, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm taking care of my son. Turns out it doesn't pay well.
Right.
Like, you actually have to do that for free.
Yeah.
And like I did have this thought that nobody understands. And
Mm.
it's true. Like I don't understand what it's like to be you and to have your life and your problems. Like, so there is an element of that
That's
is
true.
true. And
Yes.
so yes, I did have the thought, like, no, but you don't understand. This probably won't work for me.
Yes.
But
Given my circumstances, right?
given my circumstances, like, you don't like my health has crashed. You don't understand my situation with Evan. You don't understand, whatever, whatever. My mom had passed in a very traumatic way a couple of years before. Like, you don't know what that was like, and no, you don't. But
Yep.
I was just desperate enough to be like,
To
I mean,
say, well, heck, what have I got to lose?
what have I got to lose? Like if I mean, there are people on this call that are saying that it works. So let me just put some of these things into practice and see. And it's so interesting. And I said this the other day to my daughter. I was like, it's actually so simple to manage your mind around things and to use your own agency around your thoughts and to have this
Yeah.
transformation that it's almost like this can't possibly
It can't possibly work because
work, except for it does.
yeah.
And that has
And
been
I
like,
guess we should know that. Like, that's the thing, too, that I experience the same kind of thing you're saying. I'm like, oh, it's kind of like that scripture that says, if you want to change your life, renew your mind. It's kind of like that scripture that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And I think the tools that we teach are simple,
yes,
a version of cognitive behavioral therapy, simple, but not easy necessarily to implement. So I would love to know your experience with the tools. Like, what was it like for you? Now you're such a ninja at not just managing your own mind and using the tools for yourself, but you're such an amazing teacher of them and now coach who helps other people do this too. But what was it like for you using the tools? What do you think was the most transformational for you?
well, I remember the first time I saw you do a creation cycle. Like I remember that. I remember what it was on. Like I remember it. And I remember and so the creation cycle is just where you literally take your thoughts. Like if you don't speak in coach speak, it's
Yeah.
literally a practical way to take your thoughts captive. where you
Yep.
just your thought in, you kind of plug your thought in. How does that thought make you feel? And how do you show up? And what do you do? What are your actions when you think those things? And I
Yep.
remember the first time you put that on a white tablet, and I
Mm,
went, okay, I think I may have found the root of my problems. Like it was such a revelation to me. Like, oh my gosh.
yeah.
Like
Maybe thinking everything in my life is an obligation isn't the best thought to think about my life.
this might be why I'm miserable. Like
Yep.
this could be why I'm miserable. I mean, if it's true that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, this could be the root of my problems. And it
Mm,
was just such a simple, powerful tool that I really did start using it. Like, okay, what am I thinking?
mm,
That has been really, really powerful for me. Like, oh, no wonder that I'm creating this in my life because this is what I've been thinking on all day. Again, the scripture says, think on these things, whatever is true and good and worthy of praise. Well, the reason that Paul tells us that is because we tend to think on other things.
we do, don't we?
Yeah.
Turns out our
And
minds are programmed to always go negative, and
always
if
the
we
negative.
don't interrupt, if we don't give it a pattern interrupt, it will spin in every single thing wrong with every single thing.
Yes, and that is exactly what I was doing. So that was a huge revelation for me. And so when I realized, like, oh, and again, I remembered the scriptures, like, oh, this is exactly what it's talking about. And it was just such a real life way for me to put the scriptures into practice that creation cycle to me is so powerful. And I still do a creation cycle, I would say 4 or 5 days out of 7. I still
Amazing.
that tool. So
Does
that
it
was
still,
one.
here's the thing that I find, because I still very much practice what I preach and do a lot of journaling around what I'm thinking. I do more now. When we first teach our students to do this, we will have them do the creation cycle that we call it their unintentional creation cycle, their false self cycle, the cycle that they're stuck in that they don't love. It's not giving them the results of their life they want. And then we'll teach them to do, here's what I want to create and what am I going to have to believe to create that and think to create that. So I spend a lot of time now like really working on what do I want to create and what do I need to think and believe to do that. But I will say that when I was still in the work of doing a lot of those unintentional false self cycles, I would be amazed every time, like you're saying, epiphany, like, oh,
Yeah.
that's why I'm miserable in this situation.
Yeah. And I find for myself, I know you because I know you that you wake up excited, on fire for your day, ready to go, all of that. I wake up with a garbage dumpster fire of
Of
terrible.
thoughts.
Yes. Still to this day. Like I wake up, I physically don't feel well when I wake up for whatever reason. I get plenty of sleep, like I'm still working on it. But
Okay.
I wake up kind of with a garbage dumpster fire full of thoughts. And so it helps me so much in the mornings to just
Mhm.
write out all those thoughts. And I'm like, yeah, if you actually indulge that thought all day, you're going to have a terrible day. And I don't want to
Yep.
have a terrible day. And so if
Yep.
I can just reset myself first thing in the morning, I have just found that to be so helpful. And then
Yep.
as the body kind of gets in gear and wakes up and gets itself together, then
Yep.
I've kind of got my mind in place. And I do have really great days. I do really love my life now. I replaced that thought that my whole life is have to with I love my life. And then I just stole a thought from you just recently. I'm living my dream life. And so,
Mm.
after I've been up an hour or so,
You can get there. Takes about an hour.
about an hour, I'm really living my dream life. And but I love having the tool that I need to kind of get through that time. And whatever that is for you, some people, like, let's just say it's a working mom or something like that. She gets home from work, her kids are all over her, they're cranky and hungry, and everybody like wants dinner and all of that. Like maybe before she goes to bed at night, like she's exhausted. And she maybe at night is when she has garbage dumpster fire thoughts.
Yes.
And it's just such
Yes.
a simple, powerful tool to kind of give ourselves a reset. And I still today, 7 years later, 6 years later, or whatever, I still find it to be so powerful.
I do too. Like life-changing, powerful.
Life changing.
And the thing of it is, I do think sometimes people misunderstand because I do tend to have a very Pollyanna, optimistic, sunshiny type of outlook and personality. But part of that is probably just the way I am. Part of it is I've been doing this work for 10 years.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's deeper than that. It's different than, oh, just think positive. It's
Yeah.
not that. It's deeper than that because your life is still going to be full of things that feel hard. You're still going to have challenges. You're still going to wake up, in your case, every single morning and have to do the work to get yourself in a good place. So it's not kind of what I would call sunshine and rainbows. It's more powerful than that. It's deeper than that. It's a commitment that you make to yourself that this is the one life I have, and I'm going to do what I can to make it the most amazing life I can make it, given the circumstances that I have. And a lot of
Yeah.
times those don't change. A lot of
Absolutely.
times you still have that hard thing in your life, but now you have tools for it.
Yes. And it's like, this is the question that I love that you ask of us so often. And that is, in this set of circumstances, who do I want to be? That's
Yes.
what I have a choice about.
Right.
I don't have a choice about all of my circumstances, and I never
Right.
will, and neither will
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah.
But in this set of circumstances, and I think that was what was so powerful then, and what continues to be powerful to me now, is in this set of circumstances, who do I want to be? And
Yes.
actually, I get to choose that.
Yes.
And that is power.
It's so good. I think too that what we don't realize is that most of us are living, I talked about this earlier, but most of us are living kind of from a worn out identity. We've told
Yeah.
ourselves something for so long that we think that's just who we are. I'm sure you were in that situation where you're like, no, no, you don't get it. Like, this is just who I am now. I remember feeling that way too. And that is totally changeable. And the thoughts you think every day, the emotional experience you create for yourself, the actions you take, your rhythms, your routines, everything you do is either confirming that old identity and keeping you stuck in that negative cycle, or it's giving you life, giving you energy, giving you purpose, giving you this identity that you are proud to live in, that you are like you're saying, showing up as the person you want to show up as. I want to be a person who shows up with love and nurture and wisdom and joy and purpose and passion. Like, that's who I want to be. And every day I get to have the choice of, okay, given what's going on today, what does that look like for me to show up like I want to show up? And what
Yeah.
kind of, you know, tools can I use? Creation cycle is one of them that you mentioned. Another thing that we teach a lot in life mentoring school is true self, false self, that a lot of us are living from a version of ourselves that's fearful and doubtful and protecting our ego and keeping ourselves small and complaining all the time and, not forgiving. And that's not, I mean, we all know that that's not the best of who we are. So, how
Yeah.
can we call forth that true self, that best version of us, that when we lay our head on the pillow at night, we didn't do it perfectly, but man, I like the way I showed up there. And more, I think as you practice this, you have days like that where you're like, that was a rough one. And still I like the way I showed up.
Yes, absolutely. I, I gave you this example not too long ago, and I still believe it. Like, I certainly do not, um, have a whole lot of perfect days,
Oh gosh.
you
No,
know,
none of
but
us.
I always think about, like, in the rainstorm, there's like, if sheets of rain are coming down, I have a lot of people, will pull over, on
Yeah.
the side of the road
What kind of wait for it to pass? Yeah.
and wait for it to pass. And, you think about, like, sitting on the side of the road, you're just hoping and waiting and seeing what's going to happen or whatever, okay, that's fine. And if you do that, don't hear what I'm not saying. It's a metaphor. But
Yeah.
I mean, I never pull over. I'm like, look, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die going somewhere. You will not see me on the road. I'm not going to die because I got hit on the side of the road because I quit and I was hoping and waiting to see and all of
Yeah.
that. Like I want to be on my way somewhere, even if I'm not exactly sure what that looks like in my current
Yeah.
circumstances. I want to be the one who is driving the car and saying, okay, Lord, be with me. I'm going to keep going. I want to be more and I want to get closer and closer to that
Yes.
version of myself, even if it
Yes.
kind of looks like a mess, even if I'm not sure exactly what it looks like on the other side. That is what I want to be doing. And
Yes.
that true self, false self, the way that you teach us to kind of look at it, it helps us to really recognize, I think, when we are kind of pulled over on the side of the road, protecting ourselves,
Protecting
um,
ourselves. Yeah. Lashing out
worrying.
or reacting all the time instead of deciding intentionally, no, here's what I've decided I'm going to do. And doing that from it's like doing it from a deeper place and asking more of yourself to come through, to asking more of yourself, and I think that for me has been so transformational. I'm wondering for you how all of this has impacted your relationships, because in the end, those are the things that really matter. And I know for me, this has been an area where I'm so thankful for the work we do because it's made my relationships so much sweeter. Doesn't mean I never have conflict. It just means that, again, I have tools and I know how to manage me in the conflict or in the, hard times. But it's made my relationships so much sweeter. It's made me actually so much more emotionally available
Mm.
for my relationships. But I'm curious for you, what impact you think it's had there for you?
I don't spend nearly as much energy um hoping, wishing, trying to micromanage,
Get
change,
people to change.
get people to change, get people to listen to me, get people to do what I say, get people to agree with me, trying to be
Yep.
right, all of those things. That was my tendency, was I wanted
Okay.
to listen to me. I want you to believe, I want you to agree with me and do what I say. And I mean, doesn't it sound pleasant to be in relationship with that false self version of me? Doesn't that
Well,
sound fun?
mine was worse. Mine was the passive aggressive version of that. So mine was worse because it was like, don't you love being married to someone who is never the problem?
Right?
Don't you love being in a relationship with someone who's always just doing the right thing?
Right. I mean, yeah, I had that I was the opposite of that. I was like, I'm like trying to force everybody to do
To do
everything.
what you want them to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, somebody who's holier than thou, also not fun to be in
Not
relationship.
great. It's not great, y'all.
Yeah, that false self version of us is not fun. And now I spend way more of my energy trying, being um I really spend a lot of energy because it doesn't seem to come it probably doesn't come natural for any of us. It doesn't come natural for me to love people unconditionally, you
Right.
know, and I have to admit that
We actually have a lot of conditions
I have
for
so
our
many
love most of the time.
so many conditions. And so I spend way more time noticing that about myself and like, you know, um thinking, okay, like what do I love about this person instead of how can I make this person do what I want them to do? You know,
Right.
my energy is spent connecting instead of disconnecting, that way. And so
Yes.
my relationships feel a lot richer, a lot more meaningful, a lot less
Mm.
graspy, you know.
Yes.
I'm not
A
tired.
lot less conditional, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it feels that way for them, a lot less conditional. Angela doesn't
Yes.
have conditions for this is, but I think what I felt was like inside of myself, I felt graspy and like it has to be this way or I can't be okay or whatever. Like it just feels easier, honestly. It just feels so
Yes.
much easier and so much
You
freer.
you mentioned the moment like when you saw the first like creation cycle where we take our thoughts captive, we ask ourselves, what is this thinking getting me? Thinking this way, what's the result of that? Can you think of any other breakthrough moments maybe later on in your journey that really stand out, like something that caused any other shift. Um, I mean, and not to put words in your mouth, but like sometimes for me, I'll tell you what it was for me. The mindset work when I first learned, like, no way, I can control that, but it doesn't matter what my circumstances are. I get to decide how I want to show up. The second one for me was the emotional piece because I had ignored myself emotionally for so long. And I carried around this heavy backpack of emotions for so long, and I didn't think it was optional. I thought, no, these things have been hard for me, so I have to carry this mantle of heaviness, and it's hard and all of that. And I can remember the day when I laid it down, when I was like, oh, I don't have to do that. This can just be waves of emotion that flow through me. And I'm not going to die to feel rejected and disappointed. And those emotions actually bring wisdom. And then once I learn how to process those, I can learn to generate the ones I want to generate. I'm curious for you, especially like with what you said of like, like having maybe some health stuff or waking up feeling heavy. What's the emotional piece been like for you, or any other specific breakthrough moment that you feel like, man, that was a good one?
Remember when was it's been a little over a year now. I don't think it's been quite two. When my dad had like a heart attack on Friday. I mean, on Monday, and a stroke on Friday.
I
And then
remember that week.
right after that, while he was still in the hospital getting a pacemaker replaced, like this was the same month, my stepmother broke her hip. And then, my niece took too much Tylenol. And then my sister um had like an anemic thing, and that she was in the hospital. Like this was all in a month.
Mm,
And I remember thinking to myself, like, it was really hard. And I
yeah.
felt I had a lot of emotions. And it was interesting because I remember showing up to a meeting and I was just crying. And I was like, this feeling your emotion stuff is not for the faint of heart. Because I was used to being so numbed out.
Yeah.
Like I was so disconnected from myself. And I was
Yeah.
just literally so numbed out. And I remember, just allowing myself to feel what it felt like to be worried, and to be, and just all the feelings that come up when you have loved ones that are going through sickness and all of that. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking like, oh, this is what it's like to actually be alive and awake to yourself, like to feel
Yes.
these feelings. The other thing I noticed was that I had built up over time doing this work. I had built up enough kind of resilience in myself that all of that didn't take me out. Whereas years
Mm.
ago, I probably would have taken to the bed for a week, two
Like,
weeks.
I can't handle all this.
I
Yep.
can't handle all this. I mean, this is too much for me. I've got to take to the bed. As I,
Mm.
s- and like, it's just too much. I've got to shut it down. I can't.
Right.
Right. So the two things that I noticed was that I was awake to it and that I was able to feel it. And also that it did not take me out. And it was
Mm.
so, I mean, I had noticed little things along the way, but the emotional piece has come much slower for me.
Yeah. I mean, me too, actually. I love the mindset part.
You too. It seems like such a big relief so fast to just change your thought, but
Yep.
actually learning to be emotionally healthy and
Yes.
emotionally resilient it's just taken a little bit longer. And like I said, when I realized like, oh, this is what it's like to really be awake, to really be alive, to really feel. And
Yeah.
so what has happened since then is I'm also able to feel a lot more joy. I allow
Mm.
myself to feel joy where before I would not allow it. Like to get too
Right.
excited, like that was just, I mean, calm down, everyone.
Calm down, everybody. It's not that great.
Like
It's
just
it's almost like there's a little bit of yourself that's protecting you from getting too joyful or too celebratory, because there's probably this thought. I had this thought like, well, it'll probably get taken away, or yeah.
absolutely, what is it? I think it's Brene Brown calls it foreboding joy.
Yes.
Don't allow,
Don't get too.
like everybody just calm down. Like what's stop it, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't allow myself. So I've also since then allowed myself more joy, allowed myself more excitement,
Yes.
more fun. I even practiced having
Listen,
fun
y'all,
for a year.
we have talked about this so much because Angela was like, yeah, I need a fun coach. I need somebody to help me be fun. And you're so fun. I mean, we go on all kinds of little retreats and, with our company. And I mean, I'm like, I don't know if you need a fun coach. You're pretty darn fun. But
I've
that
been working on it.
lightheartedness, I think, has been not come easy for you.
No, it has not come easy for me, and I'm still working on it. I tend to be kind of real serious, real hyper focused, And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but I think that was the kind of breakthrough moment for me
Yeah.
where it was like, oh, okay, here's what it is. I can feel all of this, and I'm not gonna, it's not gonna take me out. And that was really huge for me. And like I said, it opened the door to so much of a richer experience of my relationships, of my life, but really my relationships though.
Yes. And of course, those who are already in life mentoring school know and love you. You are our program manager. You train our coaches. We have a certification program, and you help train our coaches. You run our program. You're currently in master coach training, our first round of master coach training. You're literally one of the most gifted coaches that I've been around. We had somebody recently in our program put a message in the Facebook group on just what a profound breakthrough she had after coaching with you. And I hear people say that kind of thing all the time. I'm curious for you because people probably look at you now, especially if they're already in life mentoring school, or maybe if they've been in one of our workshops, and they probably go, there's no way. Like, I mean, they just so look up to you, and obviously, like I do, have so much respect for you. What are you like? Can you tell us the things that have opened up for you since then, and what it's been like to keep stepping into more of yourself and more of what you were created to do? Because I can't imagine Angela in any other way than this full expression of you that I see now, coaching your clients and teaching our students and all of that. So what has that process been like for you?
I mean, it has been nothing short of a miracle, honestly. So if you just met me now, like you wouldn't realize that like 6 years, I almost functioned 100% from the bed 6 years ago. Like
Mm,
I was in the middle of,
yeah.
pretty, I was not in good shape in any
Yeah.
way, you know? And so just, it's kind of like now I believe that no matter where you start, like if you find Dr. Edie, and you're just kind of feeling stuck, I believe that you can have a huge transformation. And if you come to Dr. Edie and you are really successful and you're just wanting to go to the next level, I 100% believe that you 100% can do that. And it's because I started from so far back. Like I believe no matter where you start,
Where you start,
no matter where you find Dr. Edie
the
and
future's bright.
the future is bright, because the transformation that I've had has been nothing short of a miracle. And it has also been a very consistent.
Yep.
It hasn't been a like a some kind of
It
big
hasn't been an
oh,
overnight, like, yeah, it's been you just show up and do the work.
yeah,
Like
it's
I've
just
just watched you month
been,
after month after year after year. You just
yeah,
show up for yourself.
it has not been sexy. It has
No,
been
it
daily.
usually isn't.
Yeah, it has just been me showing up daily. I just started doing some creation cycles. And then I started doing Sunday planning, which is another tool that we teach. Our
By the
life.
way, nobody uh knows our system and works our system and plans their week and their month like you do. Like you really do practice what we preach, probably more than anybody in our program, I would say.
It just looks like me doing a thought download in the mornings and doing my creation cycles and doing my Sunday planning and setting my 90-day goals, and one day at a time, kind of
Yep.
just doing the things. It really has, it's been miraculous. and it's been very ordinary at the same.
Mm, that is such a good way to put it. I feel the same way. Miraculous, and then just a daily, ordinary commitment to show up.
Yes, and it has
That's
built
so
my
good.
belief in I guess my point at the beginning was just saying, like, because it has been that way, it's just been a day-to-day practice. I haven't done anything extraordinary that anybody couldn't also put in
Do
their
if they
own
put
life.
in, yeah.
Yes. So I just believe that anything is possible no matter where you are in your life. Like, I believe in the possibility for you and for me and for, the people
And
in the
for our
workshop. Like,
students and our clients and our workshops, yes.
because
This
like I
brings me to this great point, which is what is something that you're doing now that you never thought was possible before you had these tools, did this work?
I am doing a podcast. I'm an actual podcaster now.
Welcome to the podcast world, mama.
What in the world? I am a podcaster now. And the reason I say that is because Susan Shaw said, "You're a podcaster." And I'm like, "What?
And you're like, I am?
I am?"
Well, I mean, I've done some episodes of a podcast. No, you're a podcaster. You have the identity of a podcaster now.
I've just been saying I'm a podcaster now. I mean, who in the world would have thought I am a podcaster now? It's the craziest thing. And I have felt all the feelings about it. I felt so embarrassed about it. I felt so uncomfortable, but I'm willing to say yes to so many things now that I would not have ever said yes to before. I'm willing to allow myself to try things and experience things and maybe even fail at things. Who knows? Be bad at things where I
Yep.
never done that before.
Well, and you do have, I think, the podcast with my very favorite name of any podcast. So tell our beloved listeners the name of the new Angela and Phoebe podcast.
I am doing it with my daughter, which makes it so much more fun because she's way more fun than me. And it's called "If It's Not One Thing, It's Your Mother."
If it's not one thing, it's your mother. How brilliant is that? How true, too, right?
Oh, true. Yes. And so Phoebe and I do it together. She's the one thing, I'm the mother. And we just chit chat about life and all the things. And so it's been so fun. But who in the world would have thought that I would be an actual podcaster? What in the world?
I am so
Also,
darn proud of you.
thank you. And also, like, even that I'm a life coach. Like, that's hilarious. That
It is
me,
hilarious
my
sometimes. I mean,
mess of a
for
life.
any of us, I'm like, yeah, I'm a life coach, and I love it. I love being a life coach.
I do too. People say, "Oh, I'm kind of embarrassed to say I'm a life coach," and I'm like, "I'm not." I'm just like, if anybody can take the mess of their life that I had and can make so, can stir it all around and just day to day create a life like this, like, of course I'm a life coach. That's what I say now. Like, of
Of
course
course, I am.
I love it so much.
Well, and if we have listeners who are, interested in all of the things that we're talking about, these tools that we're talking about, this kind of transformation, really learning to show up to your life as your highest self, the way you want to show up. We are opening Life Mentoring School. So I'm so excited about that. This is actually we we have workshops every quarter. We open up Life Mentoring School at the quarters, and we always have something special at our launches. We all have a special launch price. We'll have a special bonus. We have all of that going on for this launch too. Just some, extra special ways to welcome you into the family. But I do want to say to anyone listening that we are on April 4th having a price increase. And so, what we have done for our clients in the past, and we're going to do that this time, is that anytime we have had a price increase, we let our clients who come in before the increase kind of be grandfathered in at that price. So, if you've been on the fence, this is the time to do it because you're going to get this incredible, amazing price, which is our yearly price to be in our program for a year is 800, almost $1,000 actually off what it would normally cost to just pay by the month. And this will be the last time to get that price. So I just want everybody who's been on the fence, this is your sign, this is your time to join. But for anybody who might be on the fence, can you describe life mentoring school to them? And especially somebody who's like, man, I've been hearing about this for a while. I don't, I don't know anything about like a membership like this, a life coaching membership. What is that about? How would you describe it to someone who's kind of on the fence? They're interested, definitely, but like, what is it going to be like? Can you describe it for them?
Yeah, I mean, that is a really good question. So I say often that when you have a coach in a community, there is something magical about having a coach in a community. And
Yes.
so Life Mentoring School is a way, the way that the membership is set up is that you have access to coaching, you have access to small groups, you have access to community. You have a bunch of people in there that are interested in doing the same thing that you are doing. And
Yep.
so it is for you if you are interested in growing, in getting unstuck, in, you know, um, just moving forward in your life, and you're not exactly sure how, we give you just literally a
A
step
clear
by
path.
a clear
Yes.
path, and we have coaches and we have community. So you have
Yes.
this path that we give you and that we walk with you on, step by step, no matter where you're starting.
Yep.
And it's just such a practical way, but it's also fun because you're doing it in community with other people. And
Yes.
yeah, so it's just a step by step way to move forward in your life. And again, we give you all the support you need and a path that you can walk on. So it would be like, a typical week in Life Mentoring School is that we might have a teaching call that you can watch, and then we might have live coaching that you can participate in. If you're working on a 90-day goal, you can look in the library and find support for that subject that you're working on,
Yep.
to help you to get to your 90-day goal. Um, and then you will have access to our planner, which is another tool that we give you. So you have access to that to kind of put these things in practice in your everyday life. So we give you everything that you need. You don't have to figure it out. How many times have I
Yeah.
said in my life, like, I want to move forward, I just don't know what to do.
Don't know what to do.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, I just don't exactly know what I need to do. And we take all of that guesswork out for you. You don't have to
Yep.
figure it out. So
Yes.
I don't know if that's an answer to your question.
So powerful. Yes. And the path that we have come up with is that we've designed the whole program in, like you were saying, in 90-day goals, because we have like all of the stuff that we've been talking about, these tools and this high level transformation and learning to be emotionally available and working on your mindset and your habits and your relationships. Like we have these like high level things that we want to do, but then we're like, how practically do I do that? And we have a very practical way to do it, very practical tools to help you implement it. And then when you have problems or you get stuck or you're like, wait, I don't see how this applies to me, we're right there. Like you say, we have these small group programs, groups that meet each week called encounter groups that are amazing. We have live coaching where, when you get stuck and you're like, yeah, I set this 90-day goal, that I wanted to get healthy, but I'm 2 weeks in and here's what I'm struggling with. And you come on and bring that problem and we help you figure out how to problem solve that. So there's literally almost no way that you can't, if you show up to the program, that you can't have the same exact transformation that you and I have had, that you can't really change the way you think and see your life, that you can't really change your habits, that you can't, live from that identity of your true self, that you can't build these relationships that feel nourishing. Like all of those things are possible because we make it so easy and so practical. And I say make it easy, meaning that the tools are simple to use, but
Yeah.
we know that there's going to be trials there. So that's why we're there to support you. So it's so different than if you're doing a course where, you get access to some videos, but then no real help. And ours is just chock full of the kind of support that you actually need. Um, yeah, the testimonials that people give us, like even when they're in our program, no kidding, a week, 2 weeks. They'll come into our Facebook group and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It works." And we've just finished with the people who joined us in January. They're finishing their first 90 days. The stories are incredible. And, you and I will have our team meetings on Monday and come in and just so often, it's usually you and I, because we're the older ones, will end up in tears going, I cannot believe that this is the work we get to do. I can't believe we get to call this our job. I can't believe we get to walk beside these women in these amazing things that they're doing, in their families and for themselves. So what would you say to the woman who listening does feel stuck? Maybe she feels as stuck as you felt or as I felt years ago, like she's lost herself a little bit. She knows she was maybe made for more, but she's not sure that this will work for her.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I would say. I would say that, first of all, the worst thing that could happen is you could just be exactly right where you are right now, which I can't even imagine. Like
Right.
like you said, you cannot show up. What I have found since I've been here basically since the beginning and seen thousands of women walk through this, if you really show up for the program, I can't imagine that you could be in the same place that you are now. But if that's the worst thing that could happen, then I mean, you don't really have anything to lose.
Right.
The best thing that could happen is that you could create a life that you love, that really matters to you, that is a
Yes.
life that you have almost lost hope that you could have, you
Yeah.
know, that you could
And one of the
change.
things that we teach a lot to people is because we have a lot of women who come to us who say, like, I just feel kind of like I've lost my purpose. I feel like I feel kind of blah about my life. We have a lot of women come with some version of that. I don't know what my dreams are anymore. I don't know what I want. And I think what we help you do is to clear up the things that are blocking you from knowing that. And it's so powerful because we teach you that things have purpose because you bring purpose to them. Your life is joyful because you bring joy to it. And we teach you how to do that, how to show up to your life and create your life in a way that feels meaningful to you, which will be a little different for everybody. But this is so possible for you, no matter where you find yourself. The future is bright. It's bright when you decide it's bright and that you are worth investing in to learn some tools, to have the support that you need to start creating that. Because listen, when I first started doing this work, when I found life coaching, I'm like, doesn't just like Kim Kardashian have a life coach? Like,
For sure what I thought. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, that's ridiculous.
the most ridiculous thing I've heard of. Except I learned the tools and I'm like, this has changed my life so much that even as a medical doctor, I'm going to go get myself trained in these tools. And I did. And they're just powerful and they work. And after all of these years of using them, I know for you in your life, me in my life, they just work. And maybe it is time for the listener who's been on the fence to just give it a go and try us out. It is literally the most amazing community that I've ever been a part of. And we've curated it that way, but I'm telling you, there's nothing like it. These women are supportive and loving and
And I would
cheering
just,
you on.
and I would say too, like, I think the reason why the community is so amazing is because these are women that are waking up to their actual life. Like,
Yep.
some of them, none of their circumstances have changed, but
Right.
they're just like, wait a minute.
Yep.
Like, I actually get to choose how I show up for this life that I have. And so it's a bunch
Yes.
of women that are kind of waking up to their actual life and choosing how they show up for their own
Yes.
life. They're not sitting on the side of the road anymore.
That's
And
right.
they're actually on their way somewhere, and
Yes.
it feels different. You feel different about your life when you believe that you're kind of awake and alive and on purpose. And so
Yes.
that's why the community is so amazing, I think.
Yeah, you're exactly right because you get a bunch of women who have woken up and they're like, "Oh, nobody's fixing this for me. I've got to invest in myself. I've got to create the life I want," right?
Yeah, nobody's coming.
Nobody's coming. I'm the one.
Nobody to fix it. I actually have to fix it. And then they stop spending all their energy trying to make other people be different and make all their circumstances be different. And they just get to come alive to their own
Yeah.
magic, really. And
Yes.
once you come alive to the gifts and the things that God already put inside of you,
Yeah.
then like, wow, you have an enjoyable community of women
Yes.
are
It's
awake and alive.
so good. And to watch them, all the things that they create with those 90-day goals they set. And it's not about the goal. We talk about this a lot. The goal doesn't really matter. We want to get you on the path to your own transformation so that you can create the experience of your own life that you really enjoy. But what we find is these women are so full of God's love and his power and his giftings that they just go light the world on fire. It's so fun to watch. And I've loved watching you light your world on fire. It's been so fun. So
I'm
fun watching you.
I'm so grateful for you, and I am so um honored that I get to do this work, like you were saying. Like, I'm so honored that we get to do this work together, that we get to work with all of you wonderful people that are in Life Mentoring School. Like, it's just such sacred work, and I'm so honored that I get to do it with you, and I just appreciate you so much.
I love you so much. You're like a sister to me. Thank you, Angela. I hope you enjoyed it, everybody. And if you have been on the fence, come join us. Head over to ediewadsworthcoaching.com/enroll. We are open until April 4th. And on April 4th, the price goes up of our yearly membership. So get in now and let us love on you and help you create the transformation you want. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.